I'm your host, Jess Magnan, and I am here to help you translate spiritual wisdom and universal laws into a language that your subconscious mind can easily understand and act upon. So let's jump in. Okay, so today I am going to throw some more information at you, and my voice sounds ominous because I remember coming from a place of being so thrilled at the simplification of human experience with spiritual tools. And while that was a lovely and necessary part of my journey, what I now know is that it was really just the tip of the iceberg. And that's okay. But I'm hesitant and feeling a little bit like I want to be gentle here, because even just hearing about the law of reflections and understanding how it works, it's like, oh, okay, this is the key. And it is the key, but it does become even more intricate. And this is a good thing. It means that you've got access here to kind of like the coding, the control room. But just like learning a new language, this is something that will not happen overnight. So what I want to talk about today, a couple of things. I want to go a little deeper into what I spoke about last week with the light body and how our energetic or light build can become, now I said this last week, damaged. It doesn't actually become damaged, but because our emotions and our perceptions are so incredibly powerful and impactful, the what's the word? The coherence or the recognition is probably a better word of the light body can become highly affected by our physical human experience, by our subconscious brains. And so what I mean here is that because of how real, air quotes, the physical human experience is, and because of our collective, shared, largely agreed upon, whether conscious or unconscious, understanding of how the world works, because of all of that, what can happen is essentially that we become disconnected from the truth of what we are and who we are. You know, we throw this term around a lot, remember who you are, but like who am I really? And this is the crux of what I want to talk about today, is this forgotten light build that we all came through or came from, that we all ultimately are at our core. So we can think of the light build as a blueprint or a template for you. And when your soul signed the contract to come into this physical human body, this physical life experience, your higher self in that meeting, let's call it, essentially would be born, for lack of a better way of putting it. So your higher self is kind of like your own personal hotline to source in this physical life. So the higher self always gets assigned to one physical life experience. So where your soul is the eternal part of you, your higher self is this lifetime's guide. Guide isn't quite the right word because we actually do have guides and they're not our higher selves, but it's essentially your most direct line or channel to source information. And the cool thing about it is that this information, this entity that is your higher self, is literally like a channel that plays wisdom specifically generated, coded, and tailored for you 24 hours a day. But if you're like me and most other people on the planet today, we were not taught to understand this. We didn't know. Our parents didn't know. And it's okay. There's nobody to blame. So let's just, in this moment, have some appreciation for the fact that we are here in this time-space reality when we actually have the opportunity to live in the time of great awakening. It's a time of enlightenment. It's a time of old programs and old paradigms to crumble. And I'm not going to lie to you, it is and it will continue to be a rocky period. I remember my early meditation teacher likening the process of going from like a lower state of consciousness into like a really receptive, enlightened state as like, this is timely because of the moon expedition. You're going through the sound barrier. And as you're going through, like everything is shaking, it's loud, it's like turbulence, like really bad turbulence on a plane. And then when you get to the other side, all of a sudden it's like you're floating. So as a race, as a what's the word I'm looking for, like the human race, we are going through that collectively, and a lot of us are going through it individually. We could also refer to this period as another timely reference, the dark night of the soul, which is referenced in the Bible in the story of Easter. Now, I'm not going to go deep into my opinions, my position around some of what the more traditional religious texts would say, but there's value, there's beauty in everything. And this idea of at least the symbolism of Jesus going into the tomb after being on the cross and then being resurrected 3 days later, that was his dark night of the soul before he came back as an enlightened being. And whether you are accepting the invitation or not, it's on the table for you to have your, one of my teachers used to say, tomb time, going into the shadows, going into the darkness so that you may come out on the other side enlightened. Remember, in the last episode, I was talking about how light carries information, and there is high frequency information that is very close to pure or source wisdom information, and then there's lower frequency information that contains much less light, a lower quality or grade of information. And this is a perfect little segue to talk a little bit more about where we left off with the body. So, the body is, as I've said before, like a learning device. And we may know by the state of the body, how it feels to be in the body, the look of the body, the functioning of the body, what is going on in the energetic, in the emotional, that invisible field of information that informs and essentially codes or commands the body on how to behave. And I actually just spoke about this this morning. I was on the very first Q&A call, which we'll have another one in about a week's time. So make sure you get on my email list in the show notes below, and you'll be notified of the exact time and date, as well as you'll get the Zoom link and a form to pre-submit any questions that you have for that live Q&A call. But what I was talking about in the call is how the body and everything that goes on within the body is communication. So if I have a pimple, or I have a bladder infection, or I'm losing my hair all of a sudden, all of this is very specific information coming from that channel, that higher self channel, that higher self wisdom channel, about where I've got an imbalance going on, not just within my body. It's not just about my body, it's bigger than that. So I've got this kind of like alert system, right? It's like a software program installed. It's like an antivirus software program that's installed that will alert me when something is out of whack. And it could be something in any one of the 8 areas of life, in either my physical lifestyle, habits, behaviors, etc., that's being reflected in the body. So a very simple example would be like, I've been eating too much dairy, and my skin is like not looking so hot, right? Could be as simple as that, but it can be far more intricate than that. It could be that I've been beating myself up for feeling like I'm not a good enough mom, and then all of a sudden I'm getting all this like criticism from my best friend, and I'm like, what the hell is your problem? Like, so the reflection will show up in a place that I care about to get my attention, in a place to get my attention to go over to a place where I'm not realizing what I'm doing. It's not necessarily that I don't care about the area where the root cause is, but I might be just so used to talking to myself that way, perceiving myself that way. I might not know any different. So my higher self is trying to get my attention and be like, yo, this friend, she's on your case and being harsh with you because you're being harsh with you over here in your family life. And then there's the example I talked about this morning with extra fat or flesh on the body. Now, the general root cause for this widespread and largely unwanted phenomenon is being critical of oneself. So now you see that it could show up on the body, it could show up in a relationship. It differs from person to person depending on where your values lie. But I could have, if I'm being really critical on myself, I could have somebody reflecting that back to me externally. I could also have just packed on a couple of pounds. I talked about this, my personal story of this in the Q&A, so I won't go into it here, but if you want to watch it, I will put the link in the show notes as well, and just keep in mind that that replay will only be available for 1 week. So where I'm going with this, all of this, I want to tie in this idea of like the resurrection, the dark night of the soul, the resurrection, becoming enlightened, the light body, and how oftentimes the light body can be. It's a tricky thing to explain. I find I'm stumbling with it a little bit. The light body, it's like the Matrix, right? Like there's like, I don't even really know that movie very well, but it's like there's like this one reality over here and this one over here. So your light body remains intact in this one reality, right? And then in the physical reality in which you live right now, it's like the light body, it's like a almost like a clone, and it's kind of it's glitching out essentially. And so I want to talk a little bit about like how and why that happens, and of course like how to fix it, how to remedy that glitch. Which brings me back to this idea of remembrance of what we are, of who we are. And when I talk about this, it's like most of us don't have a conscious recollection, a memory of an identity beyond what we have in the physical world and beyond what has been largely installed without our conscious choosing and often without our permission. So I talk about this a lot in the RRT space, rapid resolution therapy. There's sort of a whole way of thinking over there, and we have a term called moralistic programming. So these sort of filters that get installed into our minds from a very young age about what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. You get the idea. Not just good, bad, right, wrong, but also expectations around how certain things will be. Like a good example is how the body will age, how the body will look as it ages, how the body will decline, and what age will that start happening at, what things can be done, what is natural versus unnatural. At the end of the day, actually all of this information has been handed down from one human's experience to the next and the next and the next. And as I was saying at the beginning, there are these ideas that become agreed upon, they become fixed. And what that actually ends up creating is a like a stronghold, or like a, like the saying of thinking outside of the box. Well, this is how the box itself was created. Even something like how rampant heart disease, cancer, these big, there's probably like a top 3 or 5 list of causes of how you're going to die. And we've widely just accepted, okay, it'll be one of those things and it'll happen around this age, and there's no getting out alive, literally. So I'm kind of talking about two things, but I feel like they really fall under the same umbrella. So there's moralistic programming, so this molding and shaping of our perceptions from a very young age. And then what happens with perceptions is they become it's like a two-way mirror, right? Like it's how we see the world, but it's also how we begin to judge ourselves, right? Like if I know that X is right and Y is wrong, and I do X, now I'm wrong. And you see how that can become a situation. The other piece here, or the other term that I haven't yet dropped in, and you might be starting to kind of guess at what I'm going to say, contagion thoughts. So these widespread or widely accepted ideas that become beliefs, they essentially become subconscious commands. So if I believe, because I've never heard otherwise, that at 40 I begin to enter perimenopause, well, guess what? Because I have that belief, my subconscious mind is going to go ahead and run that program. My subconscious mind is responsible for running all the programs in my body, my digestion, my circulation, my respiration. You get the idea. It does all of that without my conscious control, based on the kind of like manual, right? And if at these early stages of life I've had other information installed, that information is just sitting there waiting for the moment in which it is supposed to turn on and run the program. It could be a program for cancer. It could be a program for the fire going away in your relationship because you've been married for 8 years. Like, you get the idea. And a lot of this, it's not like you're walking around consciously thinking about it, but it's in there. And I really love how the RRT perspective and my more current perspective through the more spiritual universal law lens, they really come together. And the invitation or the antidote is this: if you don't like the direction or the implied outcome of the belief system that you hold, choose a better one. And this is essentially what enlightenment is. So if being unenlightened is, let's just think that being unenlightened is to be thinking inside of a very small box, to be feeling very helpless, to be feeling very limited. And to be enlightened is to be expansive, empowered, creative, self-sufficient. You could put other words in there as well, but essentially it's this unlimited, powerful creator vibe. Then it's essentially just about having a belief system to back it up. And what do we need to have and to hold a belief system? Well, we need a body of evidence. And I remember one of my early spiritual teachers talking about how when it comes to manifesting, and he spoke about it in really grounded scientific language through the sort of more quantum physics perspective. He would often say, you need to become the evidence. You need to become the proof. And if you think about it throughout history, that's what's been going on through the ages. So it's like world record holders in the Olympics, right? Somebody's always going to break the record. That's evolution. And somewhere along the lines, along the way, the trail, we became convinced, or we were deceived into believing that while progress can occur, expansion, evolution, record breaking can happen in certain areas, there are certain areas where it's just simply off limits. And what does that ultimately say? It says that we are not unlimited. It says we are limited. And you might remember me talking about this in a past episode, where you either are the creator of your own reality or you aren't, for better or worse, right? So if you want to really lean into this work and really push the envelope on what you are capable of, spoiler alert, anything as long as you believe it, then you do have to take responsibility for everything that has happened. There's no victim mode allowed, right? And let me come back to this symbolism of Jesus in the tomb, right? Like he wasn't playing the poor me violin. He was embodying this perfectly balanced perception, or this unconditional love, even for those who acted out of fear and put him on the cross and yada yada. I don't even know the full story all that well, but the essential teaching is that he was able to overcome the perception of being limited, right? Like what's the absolute like all-time most hardcore flex? Dying and then being reborn, coming back to life, right? Like being the ultimate authority in your experience, literally deciding, yeah, no, I'm not done, I'm coming back. And that's the vibe when you are truly ready and willing to take this stuff seriously. It's not just a nice idea. It's not just something that you read in a book when you're feeling emotional. This is something you put into play, you put to the test. This is the performance, right? This is it. It's like when I teach meditation or I teach different like mindfulness techniques, it's like that's all a preparation so that you can literally like plug yourself in your life and create the life of your absolute dreams. And somehow, some way, we've become very convinced that that isn't why we're here. That's the illusion. That is the distortion. That is the, remember I talked in the last episode about the imposter, right? It's like this cloned but slightly malfunctioning light body. It's like a puppet string situation, but the puppet master is stuck inside of a box or running like the wrong script. And that's what's been going on with you and with me and the people who come into my world. It's like this script that is now the default script, which is another way of saying like the creator field and what it is broadcasting has become distorted and has been likely distorted for so long that you don't realize how small the bubble or the box that you're living in really is. You've gotten comfortable with, used to, and you don't even question your limitations and the programs that have been running. There's just certain things that you won't touch. And so my example, and it's sort of like an experiment that I've got in progress. Well, I have multiple experiments going. I am my own science experiment, spiritual science experiment, is with perimenopause, menopause and perimenopause. So I haven't yet decided if I want to have another baby or not. Big part of me does. Big part of me is like, well, maybe my work, my business is my baby, and time will tell, and I'm fine with that. But you know, if I would just bring this to your average person or a doctor, they're going to tell you like, oh, clock's ticking, time is running out, perimenopause this, perimenopause that. or like full on, don't do it vibes. And I've heard that. And I always had this like subconscious or intuitive is probably the better word there sense that like that is BS. Sure, if I believe it, it's likely that that program starts to run. If you've ever consumed, I think it's something Lipton, the book Biology of Belief. Like science talks about this. This is not just ranting and raving of a spiritual seeker. This is rooted and grounded in science. I talked about it in the last episode as well, but something like thinking that because your mom had breast cancer, you're going to get it. It's not so much about the actual condition being passed down through your genes, but it's about the belief being entertained, and the belief is sort of like the precursor, right? So if I can get myself convinced that the only reason why menopause or perimenopause is going to kick in at a particular age is because of a contagion thought, and if I can rewire that thought to turn it into a belief, then I'm free and clear. And I realize that for some of you, this is going to be a stretch and probably not something that you're immediately going to accept overnight. But even if you have the slightest inkling toward this information, I urge you to keep on the trail, because doesn't it just answer this question for me and I'll be satisfied. Doesn't it feel better to think that belief trumps the physical reality or history or the quote unquote facts? Doesn't it feel good to think that if you can change a belief, you can change an outcome? We say this a lot in the RRT space as well. How do we put it? So we're not asking if you think it's possible at the outset. We're asking if it would be okay, if you would like it. And we're thinking not in a way that we even care so much about proving to be the correct way. We're looking to think in a way that gives us more opportunity to make a positive shift. And if you can accept and entertain that energy precedes matter and thoughts exist in the energetic, then it should follow that by changing your thoughts and your beliefs, you change your reality. This is not just a nice idea. This is science. Okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit because I know in the last episode I had mentioned energy balance, which is essentially emotional balance, and why that is so vital and how to start to achieve that. And I've given you tools in the past. The essence of emotional balance is being able to see both the negatives and the positives of something, right? Like, I don't need to be in love with someone who hurt me and put blinders on to all the shitty things they did to me, but I do need to be able to get my attention over onto all of the positives. I need to be able to root equally to the positives and the negatives so that I can be emotionally balanced. And why? I talked about this a little bit this morning, and I want to highlight it here as well. So we know that emotions are energy in motion, right? That energy is in motion in your body because your physical body is the container for the emotions, for the energy. Well, when we have an emotional response to something, we have a chemical response to something. And so whatever emotions we are repeatedly experiencing, we are creating a chemical environment a chemical set point, if you will. And this is why if someone becomes depressed, they kind of get stuck there, right? Until something maybe, hopefully, pulls them out. This is why the attraction to like a chemical solution is so high because, well, let me not go too deeply into that. There is, in fact, a chemical alteration when we are deep in an emotional state. And so, yes, there is a chemical imbalance. Yes, it can be adjusted by, like, say, some kind of pharmaceutical something, right? And we hear about that all the time, but that is not going to correct the root cause, right? The root cause is energy in motion, emotion, causing chemical responses. So until we get to the root of that, we're not solving the problem. We're not healing the issue. And if you remember me talking about, I think it was the first Law of Reflections episode, I was talking about being able to see through the eyes of Source, or to think with Source, which is to say, to see clearly, to have a clear and balanced perception of something. Then and only then are we able to truly and fully influence that thing. Because essentially what I'm doing, if I balance my perception and my emotions on something, is I am retrieving my energy from that thing. I'm pulling my energy out of it. It's like when people say, don't think about that person who, screwed you over or whatever, because you're giving them your power. Well, this is it. If you can balance your emotions, then you reclaim your energy, you recalibrate your energy, and now you have the power. This thing is not controlling you or influencing you. Remember when I talked about, having a situation where something happened, right? Like you got cut off in traffic, or you got fired, or whatever it is, and now you're saying, well, I feel like this because of that. And even something as simple as like, let's use you got rear-ended. Traffic is always my go-to. And now you're having a terrible day. Well, that situation has your power, right? Until you balance your emotions, then you get your power back. Then you can shift the day. And I see so many people, and it happens to me still all the time. You get stuck in that groove and you go into victim mode, and don't you just feel like a victim all day long? Well, when you get really good at balancing your emotions, one thing is that you can get back up on your high horse within minutes. It's not like you have to wait until you have a good night's sleep and then get back and start fresh tomorrow. You can start fresh on a dime. And in the bigger picture of things, this practice, this pivoting on a dime, is how we prevent bigger body reflections, more serious body reflections, and not just body, but circumstance as well, from getting enough energy, our energy. It's literally our energy that is going to fuel these things that we don't want to happen. So as we learn to balance our energy, essentially what we're doing is we're reining it back in, we're reclaiming it, so that it's not going to feed some BS kind of like, remember the Matrix analogy, like this, there's like the Matrix where like higher self is in the driver's seat, and then there's the Matrix where not so much, right? Like we want to feed the timeline or the matrix in which you are thriving. So you got to keep pulling your energy back, neutralizing it. It's like, I don't know why I thought about this, but like money laundering, right? Like you keep cleaning the money. keep bringing it back in, rinsing it through, and then using it to build something that you actually do want. Maybe not the best analogy, but I'm going to just leave it there anyway. So the deal is that what you decide, what you believe, that becomes your reality, whether it's proven, whether it's widely accepted or not. Like, you are the authority of your story. Nothing is off limits. We've just been living in the box being what other people think, what society thinks, what the government thinks, what you've seen, what you know to be true, what the textbooks say, whatever. But none of that is written in stone. It just gets written into your creator field. And what does your creator field do? Well, it creates more of whatever it is that is already written there. It just regurgitates what is there. And it's more complex than just beliefs about the world. It's beliefs about yourself, what's possible. You know this. You're starting to get this. But it is not written in stone. You change the belief, you change the output, you change the reality, and then the creator field starts collecting evidence for whatever the belief is that you do want to adopt and hold. And so I want to shift into giving you a little bit more of like a direction, like a next step on how to start actually doing this. And I just want to remind you, this is part of the equation. So there's collective beliefs and expectations and programs that are more general, right? More universal, that you want to become aware of, that you want to start to question and poke holes in. I've made a literal career out of poking holes in ideas and belief systems and frameworks that to me just didn't quite feel complete or helpful enough or whatever. I'm such an envelope pusher, for better or worse, but now I'm trying to use that power for good as much as possible, and I want you to do the same. So there's that more universal, widely held collective belief questioning, but you've also got to look on a more individual level at what you believe about yourself, right? These are more of the beliefs of like, I'm not special, and I'm not smart, or I'm not good enough, or I'm only capable of making this amount of money. Like it again is it's not a one and done. It's there will be multiple beliefs and ingredients at play in any and every manifestation, whether it's a manifestation of something going on with your body, with your finances, with your relationships. It's never just going to be this one belief, you shift it and you're all better. There is always a list of ingredients, just like when you bake a cake, right? And you've got to look at all of them, but you can only really do that one at a time. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, once you open this can of worms, it seems like you never reach the bottom of the can. It never empties out. I promise you, you will get used to the feeling of getting reflections on reflections. And you will begin to welcome those because they are not a punishment. And this is the other thing I wanted to really talk about. This is not like your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, a lot of this, as I said, a lot of the beliefs, a lot of the ideas were installed without your conscious choosing. And we're not saying that and pointing fingers at like mom and dad or even grandma, grandpa. Like, nobody chose it consciously, okay? We're not looking to lay blame. We're looking to see opportunity. We've been taught to, we're quite practiced at looking for the scapegoat, looking for the reason why, looking for the obstacles, looking for the problems. And what this work is really about is looking for the opportunities, the openings, seeing different constellations between existing data points that feel more useful, feel more expansive, feel more exciting, right? Feel more enlightened, looking at things from a different angle, seeing elevated solutions. So I realized I didn't quite finish the story about the perimenopause, maybe wanting a baby, all of that good stuff. But I had this strong suspicion that, like, does menopause have to happen? Does perimenopause have to happen? And okay, maybe it does, but does it have to happen at this specific age? Like, there's always an outlier, right? And I'm like, why can't I be the outlier? And so I eventually asked my mentor. We had a one-on-one call. I got a read from him, and that was just one of the questions on my list. And he was like, he told me a few things. One is that a hormonal imbalance or a condition like perimenopause, I would have to look up the root cause, but would have to do with a self-image issue, right? Like perceiving that I have nothing left to offer the world, that my value is decreasing or something like that. And that belief is what would be causing the physical manifestation of energy in my body to those systems and processes gradually, like, what's the word when you shut down like a program, like decommissioning, or that might not be the right word, but I think you know what I mean. Something along those lines, right? Like, and he was like, oh no, like you are at least 6 years out from even possibly entering that era where that change is going to happen. And then I was like, well, does it have to happen? And he was like, no, but it is a specific focus that you've got to be really thorough about changing the belief, right? And you've heard me say this a bunch lately. Like, if you have bigger fish to fry, and for me, I'm like, I have time, then I can kind of put certain reflections on the back burner, knowing that, like, actually the clock isn't ticking and I'm not like under pressure to make this decision or make this thing happen now. And it was such a relief to hear that from him. So just a little food for thought if you are whether it's having to do with menopause, perimenopause, or something completely different. This applies to everything. There's nothing that is not subject to this concept, these ideas, right? Like, you are either the creator of your own reality and unlimited in your capacity to do so, or you're not. And if you're not, it is a perception problem. It is not a physical limitation, but there will be evidence coming back to prove the physical limitation as long as the limitation in your mind still exists. Okay, so what I want you to do, we're right in that little zone where I can finish any time. I always think that I'm going to stop around the 30-minute mark, and then something happens. I get over this threshold. But what I want to leave you with, what I want to have you do, and please take this seriously. I remember for me the first little bit when I was taking in this new information from my current mentor, he would say, like, oh, go and like, try to pay attention to how you do X in your life, or how other people will tend to do this. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I didn't really take it seriously. But these tools and these, they're essentially stepping stones, are so vital. This more foundational, not just understanding, but work and like integration of what you've understood are the missing pieces for so many people in the world of manifesting and spiritual growth and energy healing and all of that kind of thing, because we hear it and it clicks and we're like, oh yeah, cool, that makes sense, now I'm enlightened. No, you heard an enlightened idea, now you have to integrate it into your life. Big freaking difference. So what you're going to do, I want you to make a list, like a kind of like a master list, and you can take your time with this, approach it as you will, but what are some of the beliefs and or call it what you want, contagion thoughts that you want to replace or rewrite? Things that you'd rather not live by. Like a box, right? A thing about like maybe like a ceiling on how much money you can make, or what's going to happen with your hair in the next few years, or the state of your body. Like just go through the 8 areas. You have them now from those first few podcasts, and ask yourself, what beliefs are, subject to change? Like, where do I want to make some changes here in what I believe is possible? Where do I want to expand my perceptions, my thinking? Because it is only when your perceptions and your way of thinking changes that your life will change. Okay, mic drop moment. And I really know that to be true for me in my own life. A lot of body reflections, a lot of relationship reflections. I'll get into more of how reflections work in the relationship context later on, but one of my big first and most powerful manifesting stories was with essentially like bucking against what traditional talk therapy would have said about my relationship. My mom, like any big influences in my life, and my mom blazed the trail for me in my growth journey and my emotional healing journey. Like, I didn't have anyone telling me to follow the path that I did, but I am so glad that I did when it comes to my relationship, because I know that all of the growth and the spiritual assignments that I got in this relationship were definitely coming straight from my higher self. So maybe that's where we'll go with the next episode. But what I want you to do is just get down all of the beliefs that you want to challenge, whether it's beliefs that you hold about yourself or beliefs that you have accepted from the world, right? About like what's possible, what's not. Like, be really, really thorough. Use the 8 areas as your filter. I always find this helpful when I'm doing this type of work. Be like, okay, in the physical, in the area of like the physical body, what are the beliefs that I hold about myself, very specific to me, but also like what are the beliefs that come from the world, from experts and just like science and, my circle that I'm in, that tell me certain things are possible and certain things aren't. And I want you to get down every belief. And that's your starting point. Like, even just by pointing out and essentially calling out these beliefs that might not be as fixed as you've been led to believe and as you've been believing, your higher self will kind of back up and you will have already expanded. So we often have this idea that we have to like finish something in order to receive the benefit of it. But if there's one lesson that I just love from my last couple of years of exploration, it's that the acknowledgement and the willingness to go into another reflection, another lesson, another unlearning, another, okay, maybe what I believed and understood wasn't the whole picture. Being willing to have your beliefs changed, being willing to essentially have been wrong or incomplete in your understanding, you will feel and notice a shift in how you feel, in your momentum, in your clarity, in your quote unquote luck, just by being willing to step into those questions, to entertain them, to look at this stuff. So just know that this, although it's like 1% of the total potential in this practice, it is going to be extremely impactful energetically and in the physical. So don't skip it. And I would love to hear from you if you have questions, which I hope you will. It's very normal. Bring them, write them down, bring them next week. The Q&A call, I am 99.99% sure it'll be on Tuesday of next week, which is the, let me look, 14th of April. I'm thinking that I may do it at noon versus 10 a.m., but I will love to hear your feedback. If you want to get in touch with me, you can do that by responding to any one of my emails. You can find me on social media. You can find me on Telegram. A lot of you are already there on Telegram with me as well, but get in touch and let me know if there is a preferred time slot. For now, what you'll see is there will be 2 links in the show notes just below. One is to sign up for my newsletter if somehow you're not already on there and you want to be notified of that live Q&A call for next week and every week thereafter. You'll want to get on my list because I only share the link and the times and dates on that in my emails. And there will also be a link for the most recent Q&A call, which the replay for that stays up for 1 week. I recorded this morning that first Q&A call, so you'll see the link either for that call, or if you're listening much later, it might be a more recent call. But these links stay up on YouTube for a full week. So be sure to watch, I would say, ideally more than once if you have time. Make notes. You can even do like a voice memo and record if there's like a little chunk of one of those calls that's got your question being answered or a question that feels really helpful, relevant. Take this stuff in, lay it on thick, and I will see you soon. And as I always say, you're here on purpose, for a purpose. There is no coincidence. I truly believe that. We were meant to meet, which translation of all of that is that I believe in you. I believe in the highest version of you, and I believe that I've got something for you. I believe in you.